So this is just about to share live across Facebook and LinkedIn. So hopefully that is happening now. It should be. And I then need to share my screen with you, which shan't take me a moment. Here we go. And then I can properly get into it. Stop rambling on. So there we go. And I just need to keep an eye to see if anybody else comes to join us. So yeah, if you are listening live, or if you are indeed live here as in the Zoom room, or if you are on Facebook or LinkedIn having a listen in from there, welcome. This is... Oh, there's too many things on the screen. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, I was saying welcome. It's lovely to have you here, whether, like I said, whether you're joining live or catching up on the replay. Today's session, hi Alison, is all about a phrase I hear all the time. I imagine you do too. You may have heard yourself say it, and that is, well, I guess this is just what happens when you get older. And I'm aware that some people may consider me not that old, but I've spoken to many people. This phrase usually comes up when someone's knees ache, or they're feeling stiffer than usual, or just not quite moving the way they used to. And that can feel frustrating, and then it sort of leads to that phrase. And it's understandable, because this message is everywhere. It's everywhere. We're told to take it easy, to accept decline as that's just inevitable, and to stop doing things that we feel a bit hard, or feel like they're not going to work, we're not sure of. But what if that's only half the story? Today, we're going to unpack 3 big beliefs that might be holding people back. Maybe holding you. You may resonate with them. You may think that you've never felt that either of them before. Nonetheless, that's what we're going to do. And maybe holding them back physically, but also maybe mentally too. We will talk about how formal exercise was never built for a lot of us. A lot of us didn't feel maybe it was something we could enter. Why rest isn't always the best response, and why common things like joint pain or poor balance don't have to be our new normal. You don't need to be fit to be here, and you don't need a background in exercise. Just be here, bringing your curiosity and a willingness to hear a few things that you might not have heard before. So let's get started, shall we? Oh, there's somebody else just coming in. There we go. Okay, so I've got this funky little slide, which I should have got rid of already. It'll make a funny noise, hopefully. So that should have been up the entire time while I was just talking then. But anyway, let me get into it. So the first one, you weren't lazy, you were left out. Possibly that's the reason. And I don't mean that as a cop-out. I'm not trying to make excuses. But genuinely, in my experience growing up, and just for the record, I didn't have a bad upbringing. None of this is a disaster. My parents are lovely. One of them may even be listening to this. But for me growing up, and I imagine this was the same for a lot of people, and even more so perhaps for the generation above me, is that for me, exercise was walking the dog, maybe going for a bike ride, and my dad did always make sure that we were able to swim. But that was kind of the extent of the physical activity. That was really it. And for many people growing up, physical activity for women was jobs, chores, or walking. Those were the main things. And we weren't necessarily invited to be in anything else, because anything else was possibly considered unladylike. I went to Girl Guides. There was lots of crafting, cooking, keeping things tidy, and that was all very normal, and that was what girls had. I'm speaking as a girl because that's my lived experience and that's what I can speak about. When I spoke to a friend of mine, a guy, and he said, well, actually, Rachel, all that was an offer to me at school was football, and I didn't like football. So if fitness wasn't there for you when you were younger and you weren't part of it, if a GP or a professional then turns around and says to you years later, oh, you need to exercise to help with your health, that's going to feel pretty alien for maybe a lot of us. Okay. Yeah, and there is a lot of feeling around like being involved in sport was just too physical and too boisterous for women. And I could go on about women in sport, and I've taken a picture, found a picture online here of a female marathon runner in 1967 who they tried to push her off the course and take the number off her top because women weren't actually allowed to run. So if we've had a narrative for decades where people have said you shouldn't be exercising, it can leave us feeling a bit like it's not available to us. Alison, did you want to? Were you going to say something? Did I interrupt you?
No.
No, fine. Sorry. And so it can feel like something that we just shouldn't be a part of. And like I say, if a doctor or a GP turns around and says, oh, exercise will help, it can just feel a bit. And then there's another figurehead, the Green Goddess. I personally don't remember her, but lots of people say that to me, and a lot of people say, oh, do I need to wear lycra? Do I need to be in I don't want to be in a leotard while I'm exercising. I know my mum definitely said that to me. And actually, whilst she brought fitness for women to the mainstream into TV, it had quite a strong weight loss or appearance driven angle, and it ignored a lot of the other benefits around exercise, especially in relation to mental health and bone health and just keeping ourselves mobile and fit for life. So all I'm trying to say is there is a lot of, as well as our own maybe personal excuses about not exercising, there is quite a broad narrative of exercise not being available or accessible for women, but also some men who perhaps didn't partake in football, didn't enjoy it. For instance, my brother, I don't know, I can't really speak for him really, but I don't think he liked football very much. But actually, rifle shooting and clay pigeon shooting, he was brilliant at. And I went and did some longbow arrow thing with him and my dad. And my brother's aim is phenomenal. Mine is terrible, just for the record. Okay. And then if we sort of take a little bit, keep ourselves a little bit in the history, rest isn't always best. And we've probably heard this a lot now in mainstream media, and lots of people saying they've seen in the newspaper, to keep moving. But that can also feel a bit alien at times. And back in the day, not even that long ago, probably maybe even 50 years ago, if someone had a bad back, the treatment for it was to be in bed and rest and wait for it to recover, because they at the time thought that was the best practice. And actually, because if you had a burn or a cut on your arm, you'd be able to visibly see the body heal it up, and then you'd be able to carry on. And actually, that was a different way of thinking. That was what people knew at the time. But now we know a lot differently. And actually, all that time spent resting, the body actually broke down even more. Aches and pains can get worse. There is a time, especially with acute injuries, where rest and staying off of something is beneficial, most definitely, but not necessarily for chronic or long-term conditions. Actually, keeping moving is more important. And you may ask me what keeping moving looks like, and I probably have talked about it before, and I will talk about it again. That's not what I'm going to get into today. But it's just to say that there is actual evidence now that keeping moving is better for, and we get better outcomes for things like osteoarthritis and especially osteoporosis. Physical activity really helps to stimulate the body and keep it almost healing itself in a way. And then let's not forget, there is that history of rest is best, but also if someone has been living with pain, knee pain, hip pain due to osteoarthritis or maybe something else, actually the genuine and innate fear that may exist about making things worse is real and shouldn't be discredited. It shouldn't be believed. But we all need, we might not all need, but some of us might need extra support and help in navigating what exercise looks like to help us be less fearful and work with our pain or work within it so that the body can improve and allow it to get to a place where exercise is being of benefit. Because sometimes what happens with someone, say with an osteoarthritic knee, it gets painful. They start to make adjustments in their life and their life they reduce the amount of activity or the people that they're going to see or what they're doing. And so life gets smaller and smaller. And then there'll be a moment when they're like, right, okay, exercise is the thing that I need to do. But they may go to an exercise class or sign up to a gym and through no fault of their own by any means, may go at it, and put themselves through their paces to work really hard to sort of make the difference and make up for their situation. And actually often what people find is that it's then worse and it puts them back into more pain. And that's the last thing we want as well, because we don't want to keep reinforcing that fear of pain. So being able to go and exercise and keep it at a moderate intensity. So if you take a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the hardest you ever worked, and you work at like a 5, 6 or 7, and you can regularly do that, that is going to be much better. It's going to keep people mobile. It's going to be challenging their balance, and it's going to be building some strength that they can use in the real world. And also it stops this kind of boom and bust situation of being in pain, trying to move, working through pain, making pain worse. And that's not what we want either. So that's not sustainable. Oh, yes, I sort of created this slide and I skipped straight on past it. So that's an old picture. And then, not needing to push through pain, but knowing that you do deserve to keep moving and that you are allowed to ask for what you want or what you need in order to follow through on advice that may not seem simple, easy, or accessible to you. Okay. And then the last one, common doesn't mean normal. I'm just going to slow down a minute because I've been talking really fast. So as time goes on, naturally, the body does get older. It can get stiffer, but that doesn't make it inevitable. And it is common, and people will share, like, even if I just take a really silly example, like people always assume that when you're younger, you can handle the hangovers when you've drunk too much. But when you're older, you can't handle hangovers as well. And it's something that older people tend not to do, or they drink less because they can't drink as much as when they were younger. I'm only using this example because it's a very common thing that we sort of all share or say. And that's a bit like this sort of feeling that, oh, well, I'm just getting older. Of course my body's going to break, and of course I'm not going to be able to do this, and of course I'm not going to be able to do that. But what people tend to see for themselves is, actually, if I'm going to be on this planet for another 10, 20 years, I don't want that slowing down to happen too quickly while I'm still around. I want to be able to, do things and enjoy life. And I don't think that's an alien thought. I don't think I'm the only one who thinks that. The people I've spoken to, I don't think they're the only ones who think that. But sometimes it can feel hard when you're butting up against a common narrative that says, oh, well, it's just part of getting older. It sort of feels easy to accept that. So And it's what we kind of keep our bodies in shape for. So I spoke to this client. I saw a client on yesterday morning, and he was thinking about himself, but also referring to a friend who was like similar age to him or older, and reflecting that this older friend was still doing Ironmans or was still running, still being very active in sport. And the client that I was seeing was like, oh, I don't do that, mate. Should I be? And it's not a case of comparing ourselves to other people or what other people are doing or what's right, because they're doing it, does that make it right? But it's about you and your life and how you need to be physically fit or active, what you need to be able to do. And there will be some people out there who, are still taking part in sport in their 60s and 70s. And that's okay for them. It doesn't have to be. It's what you make of it is all I'm trying to say. We don't need to think, oh, because that person's doing Ironmans and I know that I definitely can't, therefore I shouldn't be in any sport. That we don't need to write ourselves off like that. There's absolutely things that we can all be doing at our own intensities within the own realms of our life. We've all got our own parameters, like how much money we have access to or how much time we have access to, like our resources. We're working within our resources. So that's, I feel, really important to say that it doesn't just because we're all saying it, it doesn't have to be true for us on an individual level. And these three things, joint pain, poor balance, and low energy, these are three sort of common things, I think, that lots of people feel as they're getting older. Definitely joint pain is one of them. Not that everyone experiences it by any means, but many do. Lots of people experience poor balance. And also then there's a low energy as well that comes with it. And I'm hesitant to say it's depression or anything like that, because it's not necessarily that, but just a sense of low energy or apathy about life. But poor balance, also, there's like a sliding scale of poor balance. I remember I was talking to my mum, it must be like 5 years ago now, and she was trying to put something in the car and she could feel herself topple and she lost her balance. But she could recognise that a few years ago, she may have had that same wobble, but she wouldn't have actually stumbled and leant on the car. She'd have been able to keep herself upright and saved it. And sometimes it's little things like that as we age, we just start to accept. And actually, doing physical activity can help improve balance. Balance is probably the quickest thing to get back if we put ourselves in a position where our balance is challenged. And then I guess my last point on this is you're allowed to ask for more of yourself and the resources around you to help you stay fit and stay healthy. And we don't need to, there is a different way. There are multiple different ways. There are 100 different ways these days to do anything. And accessing exercise is no different. There is a plethora of personal trainers, YouTube videos, gym classes out there. So take what you need and leave the rest is a phrase that always comes up for me. So this is me coming towards a bit of an end. And I guess the three things that I wanted you to take away was you are invited to do exercise. You are welcome. If you need me to say it out loud, here I am saying it. You're welcome into exercise and you can find it in any way, shape or form that you need to support you. Acknowledge the part of you that may feel stiff or broken, and acknowledge that you can look after it. There is something you can do. There may be multiple things that you need to do. There may be a bit of pain management. There may be physio exercises, as well as there may be a group class that you go to. But that it might not be one answer, but there'll be many answers that can help you look after yourself. And then the third thing, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. You deserve to feel as active as you want or need to have the life that you want to lead, however long that is left. You absolutely deserve it. So if those are the three things that you take away from this, then that is my presentation done. But I do have a couple of people here live on Zoom. So if you do have any questions or any insights that you want to share, maybe your experience of exercise so far, I'm sure we would all be, or I'd be happy to hear. If you want to, you don't have to. Okay. So in that case, I shall wrap up a bit earlier than I intended to. Apologies, I spoke a bit quickly right at the start. But I wonder, for anyone listening to this on the replay or anyone listening into this on Facebook or LinkedIn, what landed for you today? What did you hear maybe that you hadn't heard before? What did you feel that maybe you haven't felt before? And what can you, I don't know, did you feel like there is something that you want and that you want to ask for? Please do. So yeah, just take that little moment to have a little think what landed for you today. And then it just leaves me to say thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here. I really appreciate it. I hope that something has been useful for you. I will be doing another one of these. The next one is called From Isolated to In Harmony, The Power of Group Connection, with a special guest, Belle Lawrence, who is a lovely woman and totally fascinated by human behaviour, as am I. And it's really relevant because as we age, social interaction, social resources can dwindle. And if people are suffering with any kind of joint pain or any kind of ill health, actually, that can lead us to feeling even more isolated, which, regardless of the condition, can then have a negative effect on the condition and how we feel about it and what we do. So we will be talking about the importance and the benefits of staying connected and finding groups that are your place. Belle has an excellent experience in choirs and theatre production, so she will be she'll have her own take, but there will definitely be benefits. So if there is nothing else, I don't think there's anything else for me to say or add, and I don't think there are any questions. So I shall call it a day, and thank you again for your company.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.